It's a Friday, obviously, and I decided to go through all of the mail I got in the last couple of days. I've had a bumper crop of mail, as if my P.O. box generates mail. It seems that way sometimes. And what's weird is that literally I'll go weeks with nothing, or almost nothing, and then all of a sudden I'll go in there one day, and I was just there the day before, and I open up the door, and it's jam-packed. And I bought the largest, or rented, the largest P.O. box that you can rent. And so occasionally it'll be jam-packed, and I open it up, and there's also a key, because there's more stuff in the locker. I think I picked up 5 or 6 new t-shirts this past week, so thank you very much. If your shirt has not appeared on camera yet, it very well could. Give it time. I got hundreds of shirts back here vying for my attention. But I did wear a shirt a couple days ago regarding a company called Bad Cat Coffee Company. Bad Cat Coffee Company. And along with the shirt and a note, they sent me a thing that says, we very much appreciate your support for our small business. Visit us at badcatcoffee.com. And they are in Raleigh, North Carolina. And the note is signed by Patches, the Chief Operating Officer. And some really cool stickers. Keeping the crazy at bay another day. Bad Cat Coffee. Is it hot in here, or is it just me with a cat wearing a catkini? And Bad Cat Coffee, of course, there's the logo. So you probably caught that t-shirt a few days ago if you see all of my videos. And there's a note here from Jeff and Tracy. Dear Steve, we here at Bad Cat Coffee Company in Raleigh, North Carolina are all big fans of your content and legal insights. Please accept the free merch as a token of our appreciation. Jeff and Tracy, Bad Cat Coffee Company, and no, thank you. Also, I've mentioned before, and I've been more explicit about this, depending on the video, but I know I did some videos back in the old days where I talked about getting quote-unquote analog mail versus email. And I mentioned before I like postcards. And so I got 2 postcards in the same batch of mail, which at first I thought must have been from the same people, but I don't believe they are. And so I got one that just says, Steve, I love mail. And there's a picture of a family on there. And it appears to be some European royalty. And just says, Steve, I love mail. Mike, I love mail. And this was sent in from San Francisco, according to the postmark. And again, that's some European royalty there. And then another postcard here. And that appears to be the Capitol seen through cherry blossoms, Washington, D.C., vintage postcard reprint from 1941. 1941. So we weren't quite in World War II just yet, assuming that the cherry blossoms are out prior to December. Hi, Steve. Greetings from the nation's capital. I heard you enjoy receiving mail and you used to have a stamp collection. As a postal enthusiast and stamp collector myself, I had to send you a postcard. Maybe send a stamp you haven't received. I really enjoy your videos. Thank you for all you do to spread legal education. Brad. So Brad sent me that from the Capitol. So I appreciate that very much. Now, I did the video not so long ago about how my hands are not conveying satanic symbols to an inside clandestine group of Satan worshipers who are all members of my coven. And so, in response to that video, I had a bunch of people send me shirts, including one shirt that just had a bunch of hand symbols on it. And another person sent me a note that said, Steve, loved the hand gestures are not satanic. Thought this might help with the trolls. And he mentions that he and his wife are both lawyers. And he's retired. And the shirt he sent me was the Arizona State University Forkum, which has the mascot, who's a little devil, with a pitchfork, and he is, figuratively speaking, forking the enemies, forking them with the pitchfork. So what's nice is I'll get these sheets with them that explain where they came from and so on. And some people do send things and have them drop shipped directly to me, which you're allowed to do. That's fine. But if you want me to ever be aware of or mention you, you'd need to send me a note like these people did. So I appreciate that very much. And I appreciate the sense of humor. Now, I also got a t-shirt in the mail that I wore on camera already. But it's from a gentleman who typed a 2-page letter to me. And says, hi, Steve. Greetings from Northern Virginia. I came across your channel one day back in 2018. You were talking about lemon law. I've been watching your videos ever since. I'm a senior at George Mason University and a huge car enthusiast. Packed in the box is a GMU t-shirt I think you will like. I've also bought a couple pairs of Rock Rooster boots. And I like hearing from people who actually bought the things that I've recommended because I liked the boots. I liked the shoes. I've liked everything I've had of theirs. But I want the feedback from regular average consumers to make sure that I'm onto something when I say they're good. So he said he liked those. He also said he likes the Viper and watching the Viper videos and looking forward to what your new car is going to be. Now, he guesses that it's going to be a Chevy, and that's not correct, or a red Mustang Shelby, which is not correct either. And I will have to tell you, and the letter goes on with some other things in here, but I've mentioned before that I am getting another vehicle. It's been ordered. It's being built right now. I don't want to give away too much because I hate to talk about stuff before it happens. The future is unwritten. However, I did order it. I put a deposit down on it. I've seen photographs of it being built, so I know it's being built. But originally, they had said when I ordered it, June, probably a June delivery date. Well, June is come and gone because they told me it won't be here this month. We are, of course, still in the middle of June, but it won't be here this month. They've said more likely July or August. July or August. So trust me, the day I take delivery of that car, I will film it like it is a gala event and do a video about the car. I will tell you it is a high-performance car. It has some pedigree or heritage connected with some of the cars I've talked about on this channel, but I don't want to give away too much because it is a very, very different car, I think, than most people would expect me to get. So it's not electric. It's not a Corvette. I'll tell you that much right now. I also did get a very nice handwritten letter on lined paper from a gentleman named Grant. And he's from Ohio. And he says, "Dear Stephen, big fan of your YouTube channel. I watch both shows every day. But do you watch the Vault channel where there's a third show every day? And on Fridays, it's a fresh show. I've sent you a few articles which you have featured. Your platform has always been a beacon of enlightenment, delivering insightful and engaging content." I need this guy to write my reviews for the papers. "I've followed your work with keen interest over the years and have always admired the depth of your knowledge and the passion with which you delve into legal issues. I thought you might be interested to know my fascination with law was sparked by a personal predicament I found myself in. This event led me to get into a rigorous and diligent research process to better understand the legal system and my position within it. The experience was transformative and culminated in a case that ended in a very favorable manner." And I've mentioned before, and I think I did a video about this. I know that I wrote about it for Jalopnik back in the day. But when I was in undergrad, I had a car that had a manual transmission, and something went bad with the shifter. And I made the mistake of calling a place that did free inspections and free towing for transmissions. And the guy goes, "Yeah, you need a new clutch, new transmission, you need everything." And I had just had a new clutch put into it like a month or two earlier. And all that had happened was the shifter linkage came apart. But the guy was trying to sell me a whole new transmission. And long story short, I wound up suing them in small claims court. I got all my money back and a fixed transmission. So once in a while, it does work out. So another question I got, and this is a letter from Sherry that was sent back in May. It's in the pile of correspondence I was looking at. And she asks this question, says, "Was the Emancipation Proclamation the first example of civil asset forfeiture?" And that is actually an interesting question because our country found itself in a very, very strange situation leading into the Civil War. Because on the one hand, there were slave states. On the other hand, there were free states. And in the slave states, slaves were treated as property. But if you read the Constitution would imply that people have rights. And it would be strange if some states granted them rights that other states did not. And so there was this weird conundrum that was existing at the time. And so there's no question that at one point in time, if you were a large plantation owner down in the South and you had a bunch of slaves that you spent money on, there's no question that at one point in time, the government said you can no longer have slaves. Therefore, there goes a bunch of your property. And so in a roundabout way, yes, because they weren't compensated for that. But I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just simply saying it's a conundrum. And what the correct answer is, it was just, I believe, the overwhelming belief by most people that slavery was wrong. It was an institution that had to go. And if it was wrong and had to go in such a way that some people may have lost some money in the process, that was something for which they were not compensated. So there you go. Davey sent me a note. Steve, I hope this letter finds you well. My reasons for writing are threefold. First, I wanted to help you with your snail mail addiction. Thank you. Second, I want to thank you for the videos. They always cheer me up when I'm feeling down. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Third, just watched the Lawyer Dog shirt reveal. A+. All the best and keep the videos coming. Sincerely, Davey. And I appreciate that. And you know something? I worked in radio for years, and you'd get ratings booklets that would come out every half or every quarter. And they'd say, oh, yeah, you have an average of 9,000 people listening. You have an average of, and they give you these numbers. And you'd say, okay, I've been told that I've got people listening, but I'd be on the air at 3 o'clock in the morning in Flint, Michigan, playing the hits, and I could be giving away cash and people wouldn't call. I mean, it was bad. I'd go on the air at 3:15 and say, hey, I've got some stuff here, some swag to give away to the first caller, 251-5105. No, the phone would just sit there like a dead fish. So it's amazing because one of the differences with YouTube is I can shoot a video and upload it, and the second it goes live, I get instant feedback, comments, thumbs ups, thumbs downs, whatever it might be. And so I can look at it and go, okay. So it doesn't just tell me so many people have watched a video, it also has a space where people can comment. Now, it's true that when I had a request line at a radio station, people could call it and make requests, but you could actually say, hey, I'm taking requests right now. Anything you want to hear, give me a call at 2:10 on a Sunday morning. And you'd be convinced that ain't nobody listening. Certainly not with a cell phone or a regular phone that they could call you with. And then I got a letter here from San Diego. Says, hi, Steve, love your program. And then he tells a story about how he was a prospective juror. And this is an interesting story because I believe this is true. But the question is, what really happened here? So he said that the case that he'd been called in on involved a defendant who had used a knife as a weapon in a restaurant. But it wasn't a restaurant knife. It was a knife that he carried with him. So he said that he gleaned a lot of this information during voir dire because the district attorney and the defense attorney are asking questions. And by the way, some judges will let you ask anything during voir dire. So you can actually say, if the evidence shows that my client was nowhere near the state of Indiana on the day of the crime, would you find my guy not guilty? And now you go, oh, his defense is he wasn't there. No, the trial hasn't started yet. How would you know that? So he said that they were talking about, during voir dire, how awful and illegal it was that a guy brought a knife into a restaurant. Why is he packing a knife? This guy's knife packing. So he said during witness questions, the DA pointed out that the defendant was going to be tried for premeditated attempted murder for bringing the knife into a restaurant. So I spoke up at that time and said, I carry a knife every day. Like lots of other guys, it's a tool. It has nothing to do with plotting an attack on somebody. And he says at that point the DA got mad and dismissed me from the jury. And so he asks the question, could you really make out the case that because the guy brought the knife in with him into the restaurant, that that's some form of premeditation? And, here's the thing, is that theoretically, that by itself probably wouldn't do it. Unless you say, oh, this guy never carried a knife before. Every witness is going to say he never carried a knife before. He went to the store on the way to the restaurant, bought a knife, told the salesman, by the way, I'm going to use this afternoon on a guy I don't like, and then hid it up his sleeve as he came into the restaurant and then lunged at the victim. I mean, obviously, with the right facts, that might play into it, but that fact alone would not. And so, but again, without being there or knowing the other facts of the case, I don't want to opine too much on that. And then he asks another question, and this ties in with a question that someone else wrote me, and I thought it was in a stack, and I just realized it's not. I'll get to it in a second. He says, under contract law, doesn't a second contract nullify the previous contracts? Case in point, a couple gets a prenup, then they get married. Logically, the marriage is a legal contract. Wouldn't that nullify the prenup? And so here's the question. Not all contracts void previous contracts. You can do a contract after one that simply modifies the previous one, or you can draft a contract in anticipation of another contract. So you can actually sign a contract that says, later on, we're going to do this, but as of right now, we agree to this, and this agreement will survive that contract. But a marriage is not really a contract in that sense. So most prenups in most states get upheld because of the fact that as long as both parties are mature and understanding and enter it freely and willingly, they're allowed to contract. And believe it or not, your right or freedom of contract is something that's actually found in the Constitution. You've got the right to enter into contracts. And so it's a common law right that goes back eons. So you have the right to enter into contracts. And the idea that a second contract automatically voids the previous contract is not the case. It is not the case unless the later contract explicitly states we are revoking or canceling or nullifying the previous contract. Obviously, for instance, a will is an example where a later document will potentially cancel a previous document, but those aren't contracts either. So will is something you signed. It's not between you and another party, although there are beneficiaries who would be whoever takes under the will. However, way far afield than that one. So prenups can be upheld, and they often are, depending on the state you're in. Some states are better on them than others. But I can also tell you, I got another question from a woman who said, hey, I've got a question for you about marriage. And I don't have the letter in front of me, so I got to kind of wing this. But she said, my partner and I decided that we didn't want to get legally married because, quite frankly, who cares whether or not the courts and the state recognize or sanction our marriage. We believe that a marriage is between us and God. Therefore, if we've decided that we're going to do this and live like this, we can be this way, we can be married, and we're married. Okay? And she said, however, I belong to a church. And when the church got wind of the fact that we weren't legally married, the church got bent out of shape. And she said, what's up with that? And you have to understand, this is one of those real strange oddities, I believe, in modern society. And that is that many people get married in churches and divorced in courts. So what is marriage? Is it a legal contract, as the previous letter writer asked? Or is it an understanding between you and your partner and a higher power that you recognize? And the answer is all of the above. And so we have, for the last couple hundred years in this country, and going back even further in other countries, had this institution of marriage. And marriage is something that the state recognizes, and the state confers certain benefits on you if you are married. And so as a result of that, it is a legal construct, but it's also a religious construct, as you know, because some churches say, well, you come in here, you get married, and it's officiated by clergy of some sort, and the church might have rules on that. They might make you take classes. They might do all kinds of stuff. And so the church has this marriage thing, but the state has a marriage thing, and the state actually will recognize the marriage conducted by an officiant who is clergy so long as they fill out the proper forms. So interestingly, you go to the county clerk's office, get a marriage license, bring it with you to the church where it's filled out by a bunch of witnesses and the officiant, who might be a pastor or a priest, and then you take that document back to the county clerk and file it. So now it's become this mishmash of religious and legal. Which is it? Well, it's both. So the real question is, when you then are at a church and the church says, we don't recognize your marriage because it wasn't done under the auspices of whoever's allowed to do them in the state legally, well, that's a religious issue. Of course, the problem is that many religions think that you need to be married officially by the local legal authority to be considered married in their church. So there's not much you can do about that because religions are allowed to operate as they see fit by the people who run them. And so if the minister, pastor, whatever it might be, priest, rabbi, grand poobah, whatever it is that runs that religious organization, they've got their rules and they do what they do. And so my bigger question to you would be, if you are married and your marriage is very, very serious to you and the people that you hang out with at church don't respect it the way you do, maybe you should go find a different place to hang out with on Sundays. A different place to go hang out on Sundays. So I've always found that to be one of the strangest things about our culture, our society, our legal system. And that is, again, getting back to the first statements I said, and you go to a church to get married and a courthouse to get divorced. And I've always thought that was odd. I'm not sure what else we could do, but I know a lot of people, on the other hand, who've simply gone to the courthouse to get married, and then they went to the courthouse to get divorced. So I don't know if anybody's done any statistics on this as to which is more likely to end up at the courthouse in a divorce, the church wedding or the courthouse wedding. I don't know. So that's the correspondence and the mailbag from the most recent week here at Lehto's Law. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.